So I'm very delighted to have another guest now here from the NOAA Zurich conference, where digitalization and sustainability are also very key themes where investors and startups are meeting and trying to see if they can find relationships to move forward solutions. So my next guest, I'd like to ask you who you are, where you're from, which organization or company do you represent?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Anna Alex and I'm the founder of Planetly. And with Planetly, we help companies to understand their carbon footprint and reduce the carbon footprint based on this deep understanding. So we are a tech solution really trying to move the needle at scale, I'd say.
Well, tell me, so you're involved in the NOAA conference. You're showcasing what you're doing. How are you explaining what's special about what you're doing when you present your company?
Yes. So what is special about us is that we make it as easy as never before to really understand your carbon footprint and as well the carbon footprint along the whole value chain. So as a company or as a fund, you really for the first time gain this deep understanding about what consequences your decisions and your daily behavior has on the environment and especially on your carbon footprint. Right. And we started with serving companies only. We already have 170 companies that we're working with, some really big names among them as well, like HelloFresh, like BMW, and quite some others. And then we realized there are a lot of funds which are approaching us and say, hey, we want to step up our game as well. And we want to make sure that we are taking our responsibility serious. So what we've then realized, the big lever that funds have are not the 5 people flying around the planet, but it is actually through their portfolio companies and through leveraging like their impact that they have on their portfolio companies. So additionally to our climate impact manager for companies, we've now built a module for funds, which lets funds actually track and understand the whole environmental and as well social and governance performance of their portfolio and bring the whole portfolio on a more sustainable track.
That's interesting because I remember there were some reports just a month or so ago looking at a kind of sustainability funds and a lot of emphasis on the fact that maybe many were claiming to be sustainable fund investments, but actually weren't that sustainable. So to bring more rigor to this is clearly very, very important, not least for those investing in those funds.
Exactly. And we see quite a lot of like professionalizing in this industry. So a lot of funds by now really know what ESG is about, while they might have not known like last year. So, and there's a lot of regulations coming. So with the SFDR, this is a Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, which will be active for mid of next year onwards. Funds and as well portfolio companies in the financial industry need to explain the footprint of their whole portfolio. And what I think is even more exciting than this is that over the last week, 6 funds even committed to science-based targets, which means that they are really setting themselves carbon reduction targets, which are in line with the Paris Agreement. And so by this, you can really hold them accountable going forward. And so there is a whole like professionalizing, like the scene is now educating themselves like quite rapidly. And this is important because funds through their portfolio companies can make a massive difference.
Absolutely, because probably a fund doesn't have what they call much of a scope 1 or scope 2 emission, which is kind of operations and products. But the supply chain is basically the companies they're investing in, right? So if a company is actually got a huge carbon footprint, right, and they want to be sustainable as a fund, they're either going to have to tell that company to green their operations damn quick or not have them in the fund.
You get it exactly right. So yeah. the portfolio company's footprint is part of the scope 3 footprint of the funds to the extent that they are invested. So there are multiple methods to calculate it. But overall, what you need to understand is their footprint is part of your footprint as a fund.
Yeah, fascinating. No, I learned a bit about that because I was interviewing somebody with Standard Chartered Bank just the other week, and they were talking about their scope 3 emissions. And I said, a bank, it doesn't really have a supply chain, maybe a few paper clips that it buys. It went, no, 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 you don't understand. The loans that we give to companies, yeah, they're our supply chain, those companies, and they have to get greener. And I suddenly realized what a huge influence a bank loan can have, you know, in terms of influencing companies to go green. And obviously now, from what you're saying, with the funds, and so that's really fascinating. So Anna,
Exactly.
I just want to ask you. I want to ask you a last question.
Yeah.
We don't have Time TV. We were in Glasgow at the UN Climate Conference, broadcasting every night for 5 hours, and also supporting the Nordic Council of Ministers, the Nordic governments with their shows, and also Business Sweden. And we decided to have a count up, not a count down, but a count up every night, ticking up the amount of money that governments were spending on fossil fuel subsidies based on the International Monetary Fund assessments of several $1 trillion being spent on subsidizing fossil fuels. And we thought this was a bit unfair. It doesn't really seem like a level playing field. We're now counting up again since Glasgow, and I can see the number is standing at $581 billion being spent by governments on fossil fuel subsidies since the climate COP26. Surely this money could be put to better work in our world.
Yes, this for sure. And I actually think what I've seen, I mean, now being for many years in the climate tech scene, what I notice is actually by now, so the companies and the economy and the business world is almost leading and taking a lead here in front of the politicians and the governments. And this is, while this is very sad, this is what I see actually becoming reality. And so the climate commitments of companies are higher, are stricter than the ones that the governments are giving themselves, are more short term. So, and I think this is why really like the private economy needs to move and can really make a massive difference and can really taking the lead and can make sure to do what they are used to do. Because what we in the business world are used to do is looking at abstract figures and graphs and then acting based on that. And this is exactly what is needed now. We need to really understand these numbers, these graphs, and understand that we need to act based on that, and then being really fast and acting now. So I think this is important to say. So it's not on the governments ultimately who will save us. Of course, they are a very, very important part of this, but we, like from the business world and from the economy, can make a massive difference and are really pushing the politics and the politicians.
Great, Anna. Well, look, I wish you lots of luck at NOAA with your presentations and what you're doing connected with this conference. And I hope you attract even more support for your work, because it sounds very, very important. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.